Sa India na bundol ng humaharurot na kotse.
Nahuli kaya ang driver ng kotse? Kung sino ang nasa likod na manibela, naku, kilalanin po natin ha, maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Rikki Alagao Flores. Ito po ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Huwebes.
ICC Prosecutor Rikki hiniling ang proteksyon ng ilan sa mga testigo laban kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Pilipinas, bibili ng training helicopters sa Estados Unidos.
Chinese President Xi Jinping dumating na sa Cambodia.
Estados Unidos humihingi ng $100 billion compensation sa Ukraine.
At 50 katao patay sa nasunog na bangka sa Democratic Republic of Congo.
Las Vegas, Nevada.
España,
Paris, France.
United Kingdom,
Washington, D.C.
London Bureau, Papua New Guinea, in New York,
Washington, D.C.
Mata ng Agila.
Mata ng Agila. Mata ng Agila International.
Hiniling ni International Criminal Court or ICC Prosecutor Rikki na kailangan maprotektahan ang ilan sa mga testigo laban kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Nakadetene ngayon ang dating Pangulo sa Scheveningen Prison, The Hague, dahil sa umano'y kasong crimes against humanity. Sa 5 pahinang dokumentong ipinasa ni Khan sa ICC ay humiling ito ng 6 hanggang 8 linggong extension sa pagsisiwalat ng impormasyon tungkol sa ilang mga saksi laban kay Duterte. Kinikilala rin anya ng prosekusyon na mahalagang masimulan na ang disclosure process sa lalong madaling panahon kasunod ng unang pagharap ni Duterte sa korte. At tiniyak niyang nagtatrabaho ang prosekusyon ng naaayon sa pagsunod sa utos ng pre-trial chamber. Sinabi ni Khan na kasalukuyan nilang balak na tumawag ng maximum of 2 witnesses upang magpatotoo ng viva voces sa confirmation hearing. Pero dahil anya sa mga security concerns, kinokonsidera ng prosekusyon na maghain ang kahilingan na huwag ibunyag ang pagkakakilanlan ng mga saksi. Samantala, pinayagan naman ng mga judges ang kahilingan ni Khan na i-extend ang deadline ng pagsisiwalat ng ebidensya na may kaugnayan sa arrest warrant materials ng 7 witnesses. Sa kasalukuyan, 181 items ang ibinigay ni Khan sa ICC na siyang ginamit naman ng korte para sa warrant application ng dating Pangulo. Kinumpirma rin ang prosekusyon na bukod sa 2 saksi ay inihahanda na rin anya nila ang 16 na oras ng audio-video files at mga dokumento na aabot sa halos 9,000 pahina para sa confirmation hearing laban kay Duterte. Karamihan sa documentary evidence na gagamitin ng prosekusyon ay nasa orihinal na wika ng alinman sa Ingles, Tagalog o Cebuano. Sinabi naman ng mga abogado ni Duterte sa pre-trial chamber 1 na naghihintay pa sila ng karagdagang ebidensya mula sa prosecutor. Ayon kay Attorney Nicholas Kaufman, lead counsel ni Duterte, hindi pa rin sila nakapagbibigay ng informed response to the issues na dating hiningi ng chamber dahil kasalukuyang isinasagawa pa ang prosecution disclosure. Kapag nakatanggap lamang anya ng depensa ng isang mas malinaw at mas detalyadong ebidensya ng prosekusyon, ay saka lamang nila tutugunan ang mga naturang issue ng prosekusyon.
Tuloy-tuloy po ang modernization program ng Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP dahil sa wakas, aprobado na ng US Defense Security Cooperation Agency o DSCA ang kahilingan ng AFP na makabili ng training helicopters. Hindi naman binanggit ng AFP kung ilan ang bibilihin nitong TH-73A training helicopters. Subalit, nagkakahalagaan nila ito ng $120 million. Target din ng AFP na bumili ng aircraft simulators, spare engines, backup kits, fuel tanks, aircraft hoists and lifts, commercial avionics at commercial flight management systems. Sinabi naman ng DSCA na naisumite na nito sa US Congress ang certification upang ipaalam ang posibleng foreign military sales sa Pilipinas.
Imbitado ang 19 na bansa para magsilbing observer sa isasagawang taunang balikatan exercises ng Pilipinas at Estados Unidos sa Abril 21. Ayon sa Armed Forces of the Philippines o AFP, kabilang sa mga kumpirmadong dadalo ay ang bansang Canada, Germany at United Kingdom. Inaasahan na lalahukan ng 5,000 sundalo ng AFP, 11,000 US military personnel at 200 puwersa naman mula sa Australia ang taunang balikatan exercises. Una nang nagpahayag ang Japanese Self-Defense Force na magsisilbing observers din sila sa War Games. Tampok rito ang joint military training para sa interoperability at operational readiness ng sandatahang lakas ng bawat bansa.
Nilinaw naman ng Philippine Coast Guard na ang sand carrier vessel na tumaob sa Occidental Mindoro na hanggang 16 ay nakarehistro sa Pilipinas. Ayon sa PCG, hindi Chinese vessel ang barko kundi ito ay isang Filipino-flagged vessel. Giit na ahensya, mayroong Filipino crew at mayroon ding Chinese crew ang lula ng barko habang nagsasagawa ito ng dredging operation. Ang hanggang 16 ship ay hawak ng Keen Peak Corporation, isang sand and gravel supplier sa bansa. Bago ang insidente ay kinumpirma ng PCG na lula ng sand carrier vessel ang 25 tripulante kung saan 13 rito ay Filipinos at 12 sa mga ito ay Chinese nationals. Sa kasalukuyan, 2 sa mga crew nito ang nasawi habang 14 sa mga ito ang nasagip ng PCG. Patuloy namang hinahanap ng mga otoridad ang 10 iba na nawawala.
Unti-unti nang bumababa ang water level sa 7 dam sa Luzon dahil sa tumataas na temperatura sa Pilipinas. Ayon sa National Water Resources Board, bumababa na sa 207.22 meters ang elevation ng Angat Dam mula sa dating 207.38 meters. Mas mababa ito sa normal high water level ng Angat Dam na 212 meters. Ang Ipo Dam naman ay bumaba na sa 100.77 meters mula sa dating 100.86 meters. Higit sa Angat at Ipo, nakapagtala rin ang Water Resources Board ng reduced water elevation sa Ambuklaw Dam, Binga Dam, Pantabangan Dam, Magat Dam at Kaliraya Dam.
Nakapasok naman po ang Pilipinas sa listahan ng mga bansang masasaya ang mamamayan. Batay sa lumabas ng latest World Happiness Report ng Gallup Analytics, mula sa higit 100 bansa, aba ay nasa rank 57 ang Pilipinas. Napanatili naman ng Finland ang pwesto bilang happiest country in the world ng 8 taon. Ayon sa Finland Ministry of Foreign Affairs, masaya ang kanilang mga mamamayan dahil mayroon silang good transportation system, maayos na public service and healthcare services para sa lahat ng mga residente. Gayon din ang pag-iral ng equality o pagkakapantay-pantay sa mga ito. Ibinatay ang report mula sa reaksyon ng mga residente sa iba't ibang usapin, kagaya ng kanilang pananaw sa korupsyon, kalusugan, tinatanggap na sweldo, liberty at social support.
Susunod, Xi Jinping nasa Cambodia na para sa last stop ng kanyang Asian tour.
Estados Unidos naniningil na nga ba sa Ukraine?
At mga estudyante sa Serbia nagsagawa ng kilos protesta. Yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
It's brighter. It's hotter. The most awaited happening of your summer. It's the Summer Blast 2025. But wait, the best got better. Because it is Net 25 Silver Anniversary. Grabe ang init ngayong summer blast. Kaya mag-summer outfit check na tayo para sa fun games, water park adventure, rides, neon lights na pwedeng pang selfie, fireworks, at pinaka-inaabangan nating lahat, concert all night long. Isang buong araw ito. So get your tickets now and experience the summer you'll always remember. Only at the Philippine Arena Complex, Ciudad de Victoria, Bocaue, Bulacan, on April 27, 2025. Sobrang init na ba? Let's vibe this summer blast together with Net 25.
Awards season is here, and we spoke with outstanding individuals and organizations from business, government, and fashion recognized for their remarkable contributions. From the Asia's business circle driving industry innovation to influential Philippine faces of success, to the young faces of success shaping the future, and the Lifetime Achievement awardees leaving a lasting legacy. This is more than just an awards night. It's a celebration of success with responsibility.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Sa Net 25.
Nakarating na sa Cambodia si Chinese President Xi Jinping para sa isang two-day state visit na naglalayong palakasin ang relasyon ng Beijing at Phnom Penh. Pagdating pa lang ni President Xi ay sinalubong siya ni Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni. Ito ang kanyang unang pagdalaw sa bansa simula noong 2016. Inaasahan din na makipagpulong si Xi kina Prime Minister Hun Manet at Senate President Hun Sen. Ang Cambodia ang huling bansang binisita ni Xi Jinping bilang parte ng kanyang three-nation Southeast Asian tour. Una nang bumisita si Xi sa Vietnam at saka sinundan nito ng trip sa Malaysia. Sinabi ni Xi na kanyang ikinatuwa ang muling pagbisita sa naturang bansa dahil nananatiling prioridad ang Cambodia sa diplomasya ng China sa mga karatig na bansa nito. Nangako ito na susuportahan ng China ang interes ng Phnom Penh at handa itong alalayan ng Cambodia sa modernisasyon nito at pag-unlad. Ayon sa mga eksperto, layunin ng China na palakasin ang impluwensya nito sa naturang rehiyon sa harap ng nagbabadyang trade war standoff nito sa Estados Unidos.
面对当前国际秩序和经济全球化遭受冲击，两国将同地区国家团结一致，共同抵御地缘政治和阵营对抗暗流，突破单边主义和保护主义逆流，保护好亚洲家园的美好发展前景。
Inanunsyo ni Singaporean Prime Minister Lawrence Wong na isasagawa sa May 3 ang kanilang general elections. Sisimula naman ang election campaign para sa general polls ng 9 na araw bago ang itinakdang voting day. Batay sa political analysts, malaki ang potensyal na makabalik ang ruling People's Action Party ng Singapore sa gobyerno. Inaasahan na mahigit 2.75 million voters ang makikiisa sa general elections.
Ipinahayag po ng Estados Unidos na nasa China na ang desisyon pagdating sa usapang kalakalan. Ayon sa White House, nag-aantay lamang ang Washington ng hakbang ng Beijing. Narito ang report mula kay Mayfan Zaragoza.
Noong Martes, sinabi ni White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt na bukas si Pangulong Donald Trump na pumasok sa isang kasunduang pangkalakalan sa bansang China. Subalit ayon kay Leavitt, dapat umaksyon muna ang Beijing ukol dito.
President has made his position on China quite clear, although I do have an additional statement that he just shared with me in the Oval Office. The ball is in China's court China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them.
Dagdag ng White House, walang pinagkaiba ang China sa ibang bansa bukod sa mas malaki ito. Ipinaliwanag ni Leavitt kung ano ba talaga ang habol ng China sa US tulad ng hangad ng ibang bansa.
There's no difference between China and any other country except they are much larger, and China wants what we have, what every country wants, what we have, the American consumer. Or to put it another way, they need our money.
Binigyang diin rin ni Leavitt kung ano ang nais mangyari ng Pangulo pagdating sa pakikipagsundo sa China. Noong
Again, has made it quite clear that he's open to a deal with China, but China needs to make a deal with the United States of America.
Noong 9 ng Abril, nagsampa ng kaso sa World Trade Organization ang China laban sa Estados Unidos. Ito ay kaugnay sa pagdaragdag ng 50% taripa ng US sa mga produkto ng China na tinawag ng Washington na reciprocal tariffs. Rikki Zaragoza para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ayon sa China, hindi nito bibigyang pansin ang tariff game ng Estados Unidos. Alamin natin ang mga detalye mula kay Anna Cui.
Ayon sa isang tagapagsalita ng Commerce Ministry ng China, naglalaro ng walang kabuluhang tariff game ang Estados Unidos. At ito anya ay hindi papansinin ng China. Ukol sa 245% tariff ng US sa piling mga produkto mula China, sinabi ng tagapagsalita na ginamit at ginawang sandata ng Washington ng taripa sa antas na wala ng katwiran. Binigyan diin ng tagapagsalita na makailang ulit ng kinlaro ng China ang posisyon nito sa reciprocal tariffs ng US. Ayon sa Beijing, babaliwalain nito ang walang kabuluhang laro ng taripa. Subalit kung ipagpapatuloy anya ng US na pahinain ang interes ng China, gagamit ang Beijing na matinding countermeasures hanggang sa huli.
我们坚决反对美国搞关税壁垒和贸易霸凌这种做法是损人不利己既违背了经济规律和世贸世界贸易的原则对世界经济秩序 造成严重冲击拖累世界经济的复苏从短期来看呢这是美国加征高额关税会对我们国家的这个外贸和经济带来一定的压力但是改变不了中国经济持续长期向好的大势中国经济基础稳韧性强潜力大 所以我们有底气、有能力、有信心应对外部挑战，实现既定发展目标。
Anna Cui para sa Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Kanselado na po ang plano ng China na magtayo ng nuclear power plant sa England. Aba, bakit nga kaya? Alamin po natin mula kay Love and Season.
Hindi na itutuloy ng China ang plano nitong magtayo ng nuclear power plant sa Essex, England. Ito'y matapos magkaroon ng alitan ang gobyerno ng Britanya at mga Chinese owners ng British Steel. 4 na milyong tahanan sana ang makikinabang sa kuryenteng ihahatid ng naturang nuclear power plant ng China General Nuclear Power Group o CGN. Subalit nangangamba ang gobyerno na makikialam umano ang China sa mga pangunahing industriya ng Britanya. Para kay dating Tory leader Ian Duncan Smith, kabilang sa strategic industry ang steel at steelmaking kaya dapat lamang anya na huwag pabayaan ng China magkaroon ng investment sa mga nasabing sektor. Dati na ring inakusahan ng Estados Unidos ang CGN ng pagnanakaw ng nuclear secrets. From London, United Kingdom, Love and Season para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Naniniwala ang Estados Unidos na dapat magbayad ang pamahalaan ng Ukraine sa US bilang bahagi ng kanilang mineral resource deal. Ngunit ayon sa media sources, tinapyasan umano ng US ang final amount ng compensation na ibibigay ng Kiev sa Washington. Nagkaroon nila ng high-level talk sa Washington noong nakaraang linggo kung saan mula sa $300 billion ay naging $100 billion na lamang ang iaabot ng Ukraine. Batay naman nila sa self-assessment ng Ukraine, ang kabuuang halaga na ibinigay ng Estados Unidos bilang suporta sa kanilang pakikidigma sa Russia ay nasa $90 billion lamang. Gayunpaman, para sa ibang US officials, ang mineral resource deal ay isang pagkakataon upang makabawi ang Estados Unidos sa mga nagastos nito sa Ukraine. Ito ay sa kabila ng patuloy na paniniwala ng Ukraine na wala itong utang sa US dahil kusang loob umano na nagbigay ng tulong pinansyal at mga armas ang Estados Unidos. Nang tanungin naman si US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent kung nasa ang stage na ang naturang negotiation process, sumagot lamang ito na malapit na at posibleng lagdaan na ang kasunduan sa linggong ito.
Hindi pa rin natatapos ang pagpaparali o pagrarally ng mga estudyante sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansang Serbia. Nagtipon-tipon ang mga estudyante at iba pa nilang taga-suporta sa Kraljevo at nagsagawa sila ng isang moment of silence kung saan sabay-sabay silang nagbukas ng ilaw ng kanilang mga cellphones. Ipinoprotesta ng mga mag-aaral ang hinihiling o hinahinalang korupsyon at kapabayaan ng pamahalaan na naging sanhi ng pagguho ng isang bubong sa railway station na ikinasawi ng 16 na katao. Nanawagan din na naturang grupo kay President Alexander Vučić na tugunan ang nasabing insidente.
Mananatili ang puwersa ng Israel sa mga security zones sa mga teritoryo ng Gaza, Lebanon at Syria kahit matapos ang giyera nila sa Middle East.
אני נמצא פה ביחד עם ראש הממשלה, עם מפקדי וחיילי צה"ל שעושים עבודה מדהימה. המוצב הזה שאנחנו נמצאים עליו הוא חולש על עזה, מכה בראשי המחבלים, פוגע בתשתיות הטרור ובאותו זמן מגן על היישובים הישראליים. זו הדרך שאנחנו עושים וזה הלקחים שלנו. לעולם לא נאפשר לאויב מהסוג הזה לאיים על היישובים שלנו ועל האזרחים שלנו, ולכן המבצע שמתקיים כעת הוא לוחץ את החמאס על מנת קודם כל לשחרר את החטופים, וככל שהוא יתמיד בסרבנות שלו נלך ונעצים את המכות שהוא יספוג עד להכרעתו והחזרת כל החטופים.
Ayon kay Defense Minister Israel Katz, magtatalaga ang Israel ng mga buffer zones upang maprotektahan ang mga mamamayan ng Israel sa kahit anong sitwasyon. Inanunsyo ni Katz na matagumpay na nasakop ng Israel ang ilang porsyento ng teritoryo ng Palestine bilang parte ng muling pagsisimula ng kanilang opensiba sa rehiyon. Dagdag pa ng Israel na patuloy na haharangan ng puwersa nito ang humanitarian aid papasok ng Gaza upang mapilitan ng Hamas na pakawalan ang mga bihag nito. Iniulat ng Gazan Health Ministry na nasa halos 1,650 na ang nasawi mula ng muling simula ng Israel ang giyera noong March 18.
Naglabas ng video ang Palestinian Islamic Jihad ng isa sa kanilang bihag na Israeli. Kinilala ang bihag na si Ram Braslavsky mula sa Jerusalem na dinukot ng mga armadong grupo sa Nova Music Festival noong October 7. Makikita po sa video na ang panawagan ng bihag sa Israeli government at kay US President Donald Trump na tiyakin ang kanyang paglaya. Sa 7 minutong video ay makikita ang pagmamakaawa nito na siya ay palayain. Magugunitang nagmatigas ang Israel na hindi sila titigil sa pag-atake sa Gaza hanggang tuluyan ng mapalaya ang mga bihag na hawak ng Hamas.
Hinatulang makulong ng 15 taon si dating Peru President Ollanta Humala at asawa nito na sina Dine Heredia dahil sa money laundering.
Declarar a Ollanta Moisés Humalatazo, Nadine Heredia Alarcón e Ilan Paul Heredia Alarcón, coautores del delito de lavado de activos agravado, tipificado en el artículo 1 y 3, literal B, de la Ley 27.765 en agravio del Estado peruano. Al señor Ollanta Moisés Humalatazo, la pena de 15 años de pena privativa de libertad efectiva.
Base sa prosecutor, nakatanggap umano ang partido ni Humala ng Nationalist Party ng illegal na contributions mula sa gobyerno ng Venezuela. Ginamit umano ni Humala ang nasabing pera para sa kampanya nito sa halalan taong 2006 at 2011. Dumalo si Humala sa pagbasa ng kanyang hatol 3 taon noong magsimula ang paglilitis. Mariin namang itinatanggi ng dalawang nasabing paratang ng Peruvian government.
A Nadine Heredia Alarcón, ya casi por unanimidad, la pena conjunta de 15 años de pena privativa de libertad, debiendo ser cumplida en establecimiento penitenciario que el INPE designe, disponiéndose la emisión de órdenes de captura en su contra a fin que sea ubicada y puesta a disposición del juzgado para el cumplimiento de la condena impuesta.
Señores, nunca recibí dinero del gobierno de Chávez en Venezuela, ni del presidente Lula en Brasil, o de alguna empresa brasileña. Y en esta investigación se ha logrado probar que no existieron valijas diplomáticas transportando dinero para la campaña del 2006 o del 2011.
Si Nadine Heredia Alarcón ay hindi nakadalo dahil nagtungo ito sa Brazil kasama ang kanyang anak. Ilang oras matapos maglabas ng hatol ang korte ay inanunsyo naman ng Brazil na kanilang bibigyan ng official asylum ang mag-ina ni former President Ollanta. Sinabi ng abogado ng dating First Lady na dadalo na lamang ito sa virtual hearing.
Nauwi naman sa tensyon at paggamit ng pepper spray ang mga pulis sa isinagawang protesta ng mga retiradong Argentine sa Buenos Aires. Nagugat ang insidente ng tangkaing harangan ng mga nagpoprotestang retirees ang trapiko malapit sa Kongreso. Isang matandang babae na tinamaan ng pepper spray ng riot police ang nangailangan ng medical assistance. Sa kabila ng kaguluhan sa protesta ay desidido ang mga retiradong empleyado at mga matatandang ituloy ang kanilang panawagan sa gobyerno ni President Javier Milei. Ayon sa mga retirees, ang pagtitipid ni Milei sa pondo ng gobyerno ay nakakaapekto sa kanilang kabuhayan, maging sa kanilang access sa health services.
Inatasan ni US President Donald Trump ang Internal Revenue Service o IRS na i-revoke o tanggalin ang pagiging tax-exempt status ng Harvard University. Ito'y matapos tanggihan ng Harvard ang kahilingan ni Trump na siyasatin ang mga proseso nito sa admissions at hirings. Nais din ni Trump na alamin ang mga nilalaman ng political slant ng paaralan. Pero nanindigan si Harvard University President Alan Garber at sinabing no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. Pinahalagahan din anya ng Harvard ang kalayaan nito, maging ang constitutional rights nito. Suportado naman ng mga Harvard students ang desisyon ng kanilang universidad. Ngunit may ilan na nangangamba sa mga susunod na araw, lalo na at nagbanta si Trump na pipigilan nito ang Harvard University na tumanggap ng mga dayuhang estudyante.
It was great for Harvard to reject the asks. And, you know, I applaud them for it. A lot of my friends applaud them for it. But it wasn't surprising, and there was a little bit of disappointment in seeing the response that the university gave to the administration of, like, we're still willing to negotiate and work with you, which is difficult and just indicates how much organizing and relying on your support groups matters in these times.
The president of Harvard's decision to, not obey by the Trump's administration attacks on the university is pretty courageous, and I fully support it. I think it's important as a community here to, gather and face this all together. And I think this is an attack on academic freedom, and I think it's a threat to democracy.
All students here are incredibly proud right now that Harvard is standing up for academic integrity, that it's standing up for free speech, and we just hope that Harvard is gonna continue to stand up against any pressure from the Trump administration.
Sinabi naman ng hepe ng US Federal Reserve na aantayin ng ahensya ang karagdagang impormasyon sa direksyong tatahakin ng ekonomiya bago ito magbago ng interest rates. Narito po ang detalye mula kay Terilyn Cunanan.
Noong Miyerkules, Ayon kay Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, aabangan ng ahensya ang karagdagang data ukol sa kung saan papunta ang ekonomiya ng bansa bago ito mapasya ukol sa antas ng interes. Ayon kay Powell, ang nangyayari ngayon sa markets ay inaasahang pagpoproseso ng biglaang mga pagbabago sa tuntuning taripa ng Administrasyong Trump. Dagdag nito, hindi mawari sa ngayon ang forecast dahil sa mga pagbabago sa tuntunin na walang malinaw na pamarisan para sa mga negosyante at mga ekonomista.
When you think about supply disruptions, that is the kind of thing that can take time to resolve, and it can lead what would have been a one-time inflation shock to be extended, perhaps more persistent, and we would worry about that. In this case, you can look at the car companies, which their supply chains are likely seem to be on track to be disrupted significantly, and you would worry that that process will take some years and that the inflationary process might be extended. So these are all of this is highly uncertain. We're thinking now really before the tariffs have their effects, as how they might affect the economy, and that's why we're waiting really to see what the policies ultimately are, and then we can make a better assessment of what the economic effects will be.
Subalit, sinabi rin ni Powell na pakiramdam nito ay maayos naman ang takbo ng markets at batay niya sa daloy ng security values, pinapakita na maingat na pinag-aaralan ng investors ang bagong landscape. Terilyn Cunanan para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Susunod, menor de edad na driver sa India nakapatay.
Tech CEO sa Estados Unidos pineke ang AI app gamit ang Pinoy call center agents.
At Arsenal FC, pasok na sa Champions League semifinals. Detalye po ng mga balitang yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ang mga maiinit na balita
at rumaratsyad ng usapan ng bayan.
ihahatid namin sa 100%!
100% ang pagbabalita.
100% talakayan.
Lunes hanggang Biyernes.
Alas 5 hanggang alas 7 ng umaga.
Live na live sa Radyo Agila 1062 Mega Manila.
At sa Net 25.
100%!
Sa Net 25, let's net together. Sa Net 25.
Nagbabalik ang mata ng Agila International at sa pagpapatuloy po ng ating mga balita ngayong gabi. Sa halip na maging joyride ang biyahe ng dalawang menor de edad sa India ay naging bangungot ito sa kanila matapos makasagasa ng isang pedestrian sa daan. Ayon sa Pondy Bazaar Traffic Investigation Police, kinilala ang dalawang menor de edad bilang 14 anyos na bata na siyang nagmamaneho ng kotse at ang isa naman ay ang kasamahan nitong 13 anyos lamang. Hiniram ng juvenile driver ang sasakyan sa kanyang ama para igala umano ang kanyang kaibigan. Subalit sa hindi inaasahang pangyayari ay nawala ng kontrol ang bata sa minamaneho. Hindi naman nakaligtas ang pedestrian na nadamay mula sa pagsalpok ng kotse sa isang puno. Pinatawag ng pulisya ang magulang ng bata para sampahan ng reklamo dahil hinayaan itong magmaneho ng kotse ang isang menor de edad. Sa ilalim ng Motor Vehicles Rules, maaaring maharap sa 3 taong pagkakabilanggo at magmulta ng 25,000 Indian rupee ang isang magulang kapag nasangkot ang menor de edad na anak nito sa isang aksidente katulad ng reckless driving.
Samantala, nakatakas naman ang 2 pulis sa Florida mula sa bingit ng kamatayan matapos silang makaiwas mula sa humaharurot na SUV. Ayon sa Volusia Sheriff's Office, rumesponde ang 2 officers sa isang deer car collision sa isang local interstate highway bago sumalpok ang isa pang kotse sa kanilang patrol vehicle. Kahit madilim ang paligid ay napansin naman ng 2 ang paparating na sasakyan. Wala namang napaulat na nasawi sa insidente.
Hindi naman bababa sa 50 katao sa Democratic Republic of Congo ang nasawi sa lumubog na bangka matapos mabalot ito ng apoy. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, ang bangka ay gawa sa kahoy at may lulan na halos 400 mga pasahero. Ayon kay Competent Layoko, ang River Commissioner ng bayan ng Embadaka, hindi bababa sa 100 na pasahero ang nakaligtas sa trahedya. Karamihan sa mga nasawi ay mga kababaihan at mga bata na hindi marunong lumangoy. Pinaniniwala ang nagsimula ang sunog mula sa kalan na nagluto sa bangka. Dahil dito, nagpatupad ang mga otoridad na mahigpit na maritime regulations para hindi na maulit ang ganitong insidente.
Tinamaan ng malawakang power outage ang isla ng Puerto Rico dahil sa power plant failure na nararanasan sa U.S. territory. Ayon kay Luma Energy spokesperson Hugo Sorrentini, lahat ng 1.4 million clients sa isla ay apektado ng power outage. Ginagawaan niya nila ang lahat ng paraan para masolusyonan ang problema sa transmission at distribution ng kuryente sa mga residente. Inaasahan naman na tuluyang maibabalik na ang kuryente matapos ang 48 oras o hanggang 72. Kinunti na naman ni Energy Char Josue Colon ang kapalpakan sa energy plants ng bansa. Sa kasalukuyan, nasa 5,000 to 7,000 na tirahan na ang may kuryente sa isla.
Sa Estados Unidos, kinasuhan si Albert Saniger, dating CEO ng Nate e-commerce firm, dahil sa pagpapatakbo umano ng hindi makatotohanang AI app. Napag-alaman sa investigasyon na peke pala ang AI at mga call center agents pala sa Pilipinas ang AI na ibinibida ng naturang app. Sinabi ng federal prosecutors na mahigit $40 million ang kinita ni Saniger dahil sa paulit-ulit nitong sinabi sa mga investors na gumagamit ng AI tech ang Nate app para ito na ang mamili ng mga pangangailangan ng mga customers. Ang katotohanan nila ay mga call center agents ang sikretong namimili para sa mga customers na gumagamit ng Nate app. Ayon sa legal experts, nahaharap si Saniger sa 1 count ng securities fraud at isang count ng wire fraud. Parehong may maximum sentence ito na 20 taon sa kulungan.
Nakumpleto na ng China ang tinatawag nitong world's first 3 satellite constellations sa distant retrograde orbit o DRO ng Earth-Moon region sa kalawakan. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, ang constellation ay dinevelop ng Chinese Academy of Sciences bilang bahagi ng kanilang pag-aaral sa orbit ng Earth. Paliwanag ng institusyon, isang tagumpay para sa China ang makapaglunsad ng ganitong satellite bilang pundasyon na rin ng space exploration ng bansa. Layo ng satellite na ito na mangolekta ng data at maging communication link sa ibang mga satellites. Inaasahan na sa inaharap na mga proyekto ng China ay maglulungsad ng iba't ibang eksperimento mga Chinese scientists at researchers sa ibang orbit ng Earth-Moon space.
Maagang umexit sa doubles sina Alex Agila at KT Volines laban kina Cristina Rosca at Carmen Corley sa 5th Oeiras Ladies Open 2025 na ginanap sa Portugal. Hindi nakasabay sina Agila at Volines sa bilis at lakas na Rosca at Corley. Natapos ang laban sa scores na 3-6 at 4-6. Nabigo rin si Agila sa round of 16 ng WTA laban naman kay Pana Udvarti ng Hungary. Naunahan ng Filipino ace player sa first round ang senior na si Udvarti. Bumawi kaagad si Agila sa ikalawang set, subalit kinapos pa rin si Agila sa huling 2 laro kaya naipanalo ni Udvarti ang straight sets. Pero relax lang mga Filipino fans dahil muling magpapakitang gila si Agila, ang Filipino Grand Slam beater sa WTA 1000 Madrid mula April 21 hanggang 27.
Habang pasok naman sa semifinals ng Champions League ang kuponan ng Arsenal matapos itong matalo ang Real Madrid sa Bernabeu Stadium. Si DJ Angelo Cabansag para sa detalye.
Sa score na 2-1, nanalo ang Arsenal laban sa Real Madrid sa kanilang laban sa Champions League sa Bernabeu Stadium. Sinabi ni Arsenal coach Mikel Arteta na napakalaking hakbang ang kanilang panalo sa Bernabeu lalo na at natalo ang kanilang koponan, ang Real Madrid, na siyang top team sa kompetisyon. Pinuri rin ni Coach Michael ang kanyang mga manlalaro at sinabing pinaghahanda na nila ang sunod nilang laban.
Know that I start before, so great to be part of the history in that part. But again, we are really happy tonight. Certainly not satisfied. We have an amazing tie now against PSG, a team that we know really well and we already played against. So let's start to get prepared for that one.
Tinanggap naman ng Real Madrid ang kanilang pagkatalo at sinabing pinagtutuunan na nila ng pansin ang natitirang bahagi ng football season. Inamin din Real Madrid coach na si Carlo Ancelotti na mas mahusay ang koponan ng Arsenal kaysa sa kanila.
Tenemos que manejar bien también la parte triste que es una eliminación de la Champions League. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? Hay 3 competiciones y tenemos que estar focalizados en esta, en la Liga, en la final de la Copa del Rey y al final de la temporada en el Mundial de Club. Hay que aceptarlo también porque en los 2 partidos creo que Arsenal ha sido mejor que nosotros.
Ito po si DJ Angelo Cabansag from London, United Kingdom para po sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Binuhat naman ni Tyler Herro ang Miami Heat upang ibulsa ang panalo laban sa Chicago Bulls at ipagpatuloy ang playoff hopes ng kanyang kampo sa score na 109-90. Gumawa ng 38 points sa Miami sharpshooter kung saan naipasok niya ang 13 mula sa 19 shots na pinakawalan. Sa unang kalahating bahagi pa lamang ng laban ay kontrolado na ng Miami ang opensa at nagawa ng koponan Natambakan ang Bulls ng 24 points, 71-47. Bahagyang nakabawi ang Bulls sa ikatlong quarter at naibaba nila sa 14 points ang lamang ng Heat, subalit tuluyan ding ibinalik na Miami ang opensa sa huling quarter at muling nailayo ang lead. Sa pagtatapos po ng laban, hawak na Miami ang 19 points. Nakalamangan at nakatakdang labanan ang Atlanta Hawks para pag-agawan naman ang ikalawang pwesto sa Eastern Conference. Hindi naman naging sapat ang 25 points and 10 rebounds na ginawa ni Bulls guard Josh Giddey sa 40 minutes niyang nilaro. Maaalalang kahapon, April 16 ay natalo ang Hawks sa Orlando Magic at napunta sa Magic ang seed number 7 sa Eastern Conference. Ang tuluyang mananalo sa pagitan ng Hawks at Miami ang tuluyang uusad sa ikawalong pwesto at kukumpleto sa playoffs bracket sa Eastern Conference, hudyat para sa pag-usad ng playoffs 2025.
Nahaharap po ngayon sa isang taon na pagkakakulong si South Korean actor Yong-soo o mas kilala bilang Player 001 sa Squid Game. Si Player 001 ay hinatulan ng isang taong pagkakakulong sa kasong indecent assault. Ang insidente ay naganap noong 2017 kung saan umano'y niyakap at hinalikan niya ang isang babae ng walang pahintulot. Una siyang sinintensyahan ng 8 buwan na may probation, ngunit binago ito ng korte at ginawang isang buong taon ang pagkakabilanggo. Mariin niyang itinanggi ang paratang at sinabing ginawa niya ito sa puso ng isang ama na umani naman ng maraming batikos. Nakatakdang ilabas ang final ruling sa kanyang apela sa darating na June 3.
Nagsimula na po ang muling paglilitis kay Weinstein, dating kanilang producer sa Hollywood, noong April 15 sa New York City. Ito ay kasunod ng pagbabasura ng kanyang 2020 conviction ng korte sa New York dahil umano sa nakitang mga inconsistencies sa hawak nilang mga witness testimony. Si Weinstein ay nakaharap ngayon sa kasong rape at 2 sexual assault. Sa unang araw ng pagpili ng hurado ay maraming nagpahayag ng opinyon na biased o may emotional connection sa naturang kaso at mula sa 140 potential na mga hurado, humigit kumulang 40 lamang ang natira matapos ang unang araw. Ayon sa abogado ni Weinstein na si Arthur Agila, lahat ng ugnayan ay voluntary at umaasa siyang mapapawalang sala ang kanyang kliyente.
Trial has begun. The judge is vetting the jurors. We're going to go up there and do the best we can to get a fair and impartial jury and proceed to opening statements maybe as early as tomorrow or Thursday. Nothing exciting or special going on right now, except we're going to do the best we can to make sure anyone who's going to sit on the jury does not have any preconceived notions or predisposed ideas of what a verdict should be, and that they only base their verdict on the evidence that they're going to hear during this apparently 2-month-long trial.
How tough is it when this has gone? There's been one trial already. How tough is it to find a jury?
Well, unlike probably every case going on in this courthouse right now, where a jury comes in and hears a case, they don't know who the defendant is, they don't know who the facts are, they don't have any background. That's not the case here. But all sides and the judge are going to work very hard to make sure that whatever jury is seated is one that can keep an open mind and base their verdict on the evidence and not on anything else.
Can you describe Harvey's state of mind right now? We know he's been sick.
Gayunpaman, kahit mapawalang sala sa kasong ito, nananatili si Weinstein sa bilangguan dahil sa hiwalay na hatol noong taong 2022 sa Los Angeles, kung saan siya ay sinintensyahan na ng 16 na taon. Inaasahang ilalarawan ni prosecution si Weinstein bilang paulit-ulit na pag-abuso at sa paggamit ng kapangyarihan sa industriya upang pagsamantalahan ang mga kababaihan.
I have the honor of representing an incredible woman, Jane Doe, who will be testifying against Harvey Weinstein in this criminal trial. Her name will become public during the course of this trial. 5 years ago, I had the incredible privilege of representing one of the Molyneux witnesses prior bad act witnesses, Tarley Wolf, when she testified against Harvey Weinstein in this very courthouse. Since then, justice has been delayed. The conviction was overturned, and the DA's office is going to have to try this case again. And they are going to ensure that Weinstein is held accountable for his heinous crimes against women. You'll hear from some of the same women who testified 5 years ago against Weinstein, but you're also going to hear from a new woman, my client Jane Doe, also known as complaining witness number 3. Harvey Weinstein was indicted for criminal sexual act in the first degree for sexually assaulting my client in a Manhattan hotel room in spring of 2006. As she has told me her experience, and again told the DA her experiences, one thing has been crystal clear, that this was not consensual. This was sexual assault with force. Her story is not mine to tell, but she will tell it on the witness stand when the time comes.
Susunod, mga mamamayan ng Chelsea, Michigan, nagpakita ng mabuting ehemplo ng bayanihan.
Pink full moon, makikita na sa iba't ibang bahagi ng mundo.
At abangan ang iba pang mga storya pagdating ni Alma Angeles at ng Net25 World News. Detalye po ng mga balitang yan at iba pa ring mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Senatorial candidate Vicente Soto III matapang na sasagutin ang 25 tanong ng bayan. Ngayong Sabado na, alas 7 ng gabi, dito lang sa Net25.
Ako po si Tito Soto, abangan niyo po ang aking sagot sa 25 tanong ng bayan, dito lang sa Net25.
Corina interviews, ano pa? Hataw naman tayo sa dance floor, hataw din sa buhay. Yan ang reyna pagdating sa sayawan, Regine Tolentino. Pero ang kwento niya, hindi puro pag-indak at sunod sa beat ha. Naging babysitter, naging food server, ang daming dinaan ng racket. Negosyante rin siya at nagde-design ng costume at gowns. Wow, talagang multitasker. Ano pa ba ang hindi niya kayang gawin? Lahat yan at marami pang mga revelations from Regine dito lang sa Corina Interview 6 p.m. Sunday sa Net25.
Together sa Net25. Sa Net25.
Inanunsyo ni U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. na pinaplano nitong magsagawa ng bagong mga pag-aaral na tutukoy sa environmental contributors sa autism. Ito ay sa gitna ng tumataas na bilang ng mga batang may autism sa Estados Unidos. Alamin natin ang mga detalye mula kay Leo Velasco.
Noong Martes, sinabi ni Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. na balak nitong maglunsad ng mga pag-aaral ukol sa kaugnayan ng kapaligiran sa autismo. Sa kanyang kauna-unahang press conference bilang hepe ng Department of Health and Human Services, sinabi nitong titignan ng pag-aaral ang amag, hangin, tubig, pagkain, gamot, ultrasound, at pati na parental risk factors tulad ng edad, katabaan at diabetes.
We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin.
Sa kasalukuyan, hindi pa natutunto ng sanhi ng autismo. Ayon sa mga eksperto, marahil ay resulta ito ng magkahalong genetic at environmental factors. At ang dumaraming kaso sa bansa ay dahil sa bumubuting pagkaalam at lumalawak ng mga katangian na ginagamit upang ilarawan ang kondisyon. Samantala, dinitalya ni Kennedy ang statistika ng autismo sa bansa.
Overall, the autism is increasing in prevalence at an alarming rate. The study tests 8-year-olds who were born in 2014. The ASD prevalence rate in 8-year-olds is now 1 in 31. Shocking. There's an extreme risk for boys. Overall, the risk for boys of getting an autism diagnosis in this country is now 1 in 20. And as high in California, which has the best data collection. So it probably also reflects the national trend, 1 in 12.5 boys. This is part of an unrelenting upward trend. The prevalence 2 years ago was 1 in 36.
Dagdag ni Kennedy, hindi bumababa ang trend ng bilang ng may autismo sa US.
The first ADDM survey was 22 years ago when prevalence was 1 in 150 children. In all the core states, the trend is consistently upward, and most cases now are severe. So about 25% of the kids who are diagnosed with autism are nonverbal, non-toilet trained, and have other stereotypical features, head banging, tactile and light sensitivities, stimming, toe walking, etc.
Matagal nang itinataguyod ni Kennedy ang kaugnayan ng bakuna at autismo. Kamakailan, nagbigay ito ng September deadline para sa US National Institutes of Health upang alamin ano ba talaga ang dahilan ng pagtaas ng autism rates sa bansa.
Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And clearly there are industries. This is coming from an environmental toxin. And somebody made a profit by putting that environmental toxin into our air, our water, our medicines, our food. And it's to their benefit to say, to normalize it. To say, this is all normal, it's always been here. But that's not good for our country. And it's not good for the press to not be more inquisitive, to not be more skeptical. And within 3 weeks, and probably we're hoping in 2 weeks, we're going to announce a series of new studies to identify precisely what the environmental toxins are that are causing it. This has not been done before. And we're going to do it in a thorough and comprehensive way, and we're going to get back to with an answer to the American people very, very quickly.
Leo Velasco para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nagtulungan naman po ang humigit kumulang 300 mga residente sa Chelsea, Michigan para bumuo na human chain para ilipat ang mga libro ni Serendipity Bookstore owner Michelle Tuplin sa bago nitong lokasyon. Ayon kay Casey Frizz, isa sa mga residenteng tumulong sa Book Brigade, tumagal ang kanilang paglilipat. Naku, halos 2 oras po. Ang bookstore ni Tuplin ay naglalaman ng 9,100 books at mayroon lamang siyang 3 empleyado na part-timers pa. Dahil sa bayanihang ginawa ng komunidad ng Chelsea, ay napadali ang lahat ng preparasyon ni Tuplin patungo sa kanyang bagong store location. Ikinatuwa ni Tuplin ang pagtulong ng kanyang mga kapitbahay at inaasahan niyang magbubukas ang kanyang shop matapos ang 2 linggo. Naitayo ang Serendipity Bookstore taong 1997, mga 60 miles kaluran ng Detroit.
Masisilayan sa kalangitan ng pink full moon sa darating na weekend ayon po yan sa National Aeronautics and Space Administration o NASA. Bagamat tinatawag na pink ay hindi talaga kulay rosas po ang buwan. Ang pangalan nito ay nagmula sa isang uri ng bulaklak na phlox sabulara na namumulaklak tuwing tagsibol. Mapapanood ang pink full moon sa Sabado, Hilaga at Timog na parte ng Earth. Samantala, susunod naman ang Lyrid meteor shower na inaasahang makikita sa papawirin mula April 21 hanggang 22 ayon sa American Meteor Society. Paliwanag ng mga eksperto, maaaring makaapekto ang liwanag ng buwan sa panonood ng meteor shower. Inaasahan na 10 hanggang 15 meteors ang masasaksihan kada oras. Ang dalawang celestial event na ito ay ang isang pambihirang pagkakataon para sa mga mahilig sa astronomy at mga nais mag-stargaze sa kabigha-bighani nating kalangitan.
Nina, hindi man fully pink yung pink full mo na yan. At least tayo, pink na pink.
Tayo pink na pink para bagang nakita natin na mangyayari yan sa mga darating na
diba?
araw.
Hindi man nila alam kung nasa timog sila ng Earth or sa anumang
Hilaga
bahagi.
ba?
Ayan, at least ngayon po makikita nyo na ang ang kapink.
Diba? Tsaka it wouldn't hurt to do a little research para alam natin talaga kung tayo ba ay papalaring makita yan o hindi.
Naku, abangan po natin, magbigay tayo ng detalye dyan.
Diba?
Sa mga susunod na araw. Pero tandaan sa ngayon, narito po kami para maghatid ng balita sa amang dako ng mundo. Magandang gabi po. Ako po si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Rikki Alagao Flores, ito po ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman po sa iba pang mga balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa Net 25 World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Rikki. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for Net 25 World News on tonight's headlines. Following the powerful magnitude 7.7 earthquake that struck Myanmar, thousands of residents were killed, and among those affected were our very own overseas Filipino workers. The Iglesia ni Cristo quickly responded to the crisis, extending much-needed aid to our kababayans in distress.
Sa lahat po ng namumuno ng Iglesia ni Cristo, kami po bilang representante ng mga Pilipino na galing sa Mandalay, kami po ay lugod na nagpapasalamat. Maraming salamat po at hindi niyo po kami pinababayaan.
A stark warning from the World Trade Organization, the US-China trade war is pushing the two economies towards a virtual decoupling.
We project that global merchandise trade volumes will decline by 0.2% in 2025. Nearly 3 percentage points below the level we would have expected.
From steam engines to self-driving cars, the New York International Auto Show has seen it all. And this year, the show celebrates its 125th anniversary, showcasing the latest in automotive technology. And the news starts now. Following the powerful magnitude 7.7 earthquake that struck Myanmar, thousands of residents were killed, and among those affected were our very own overseas Filipino workers. The Iglesia ni Cristo quickly responded to the crisis, extending much-needed aid to our kababayans in distress. Take a look. Last March 28, a devastating 7.7 magnitude earthquake rocked Myanmar, with tremors felt as far as Thailand. The massive quake brought widespread destruction, toppling buildings, collapsing bridges, and cracking roads across the country. Among the hardest hit areas was Mandalay, Myanmar's second-largest city and home to over 1.7 million people, including a number of Filipino migrant workers. Many of them are Filipino teachers who have lost their jobs and to this day remain unpaid due to the economic challenges now facing Myanmar. In response, the Iglesia ni Cristo launched its humanitarian mission, Dalhingap sa Mamamayan or Care for Humanity, through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation. The outreach was held in Yangon at the Best Western Green Hill Hotel. But before the aid was distributed, the INC coordinated with the Philippine Embassy in Myanmar, led by Chargé d'Affaires Angelito A. Nayan. Under the leadership of INC Executive Minister Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, the relief mission was supervised by District Supervising Minister Brother Alan Gomez, along with Ministers Brother Adriel Magpile and Brother Jerome Emor Bunye.
Sa lahat po ng namumuno ng Iglesia ni Cristo, kami po bilang representante ng mga Pilipino na galing sa Mandalay, kami po ay lugod na nagpapasalamat sa pagtulong niyo po sa amin. Lalo na ngayong nakaranas kami ng hindi inaasahan at saka traumatic na experience. So, 10 po ng mga kasamahan ko na taga Mandalay, mga Pilipino na taga Mandalay, kami po ay taus-pusong nagpapasalamat sa Iglesia po ni Cristo. Maraming salamat po at hindi niyo po kami pinababayaan.
This act of compassion is just one of many being carried out by the Iglesia ni Cristo across the world, fulfilling the biblical command to help those in need no matter where they are.
Maraming salamat po, kapatid na Eduardo V. Manalo.
A stark warning from the World Trade Organization, the U.S.-China trade war is pushing the two economies towards a virtual decoupling. The WTO has significantly lowered its global trade forecast, citing U.S. tariffs and their potential to trigger the largest slump since the COVID crisis.
The World Trade Organization slashed its forecast for global merchandise trade from solid growth to a decline on Wednesday. It said US tariffs and spillover effects could lead to the heaviest slump since the height of the COVID pandemic. WTO's Director General, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
We project that global merchandise trade volumes will decline by 0.2% in 2025, nearly 3 percentage points below the level we would have expected without recent trade policy shifts.
The WTO said its new estimate was based on measures in place at the start of this week. US President Donald Trump imposed extra duties on steel and car imports, as well as more sweeping global tariffs. That was before unexpectedly pausing higher duties on a dozen economies. His trade war with China has also intensified, with tit-for-tat exchanges pushing levies on each other's imports beyond 100%.
We currently estimate that merchandise trade between the two economies will fall by 81%, a drop that would have reached 91% without recent exemptions for products such as smartphones. So without the smartphones, 91%, with that exemption, 81%. And this level of a drop in US-China trade of the magnitudes we are talking about is virtually tantamount to a decoupling of the two economies.
The WTO chief added that this trade disruption could increase Chinese merchandise exports across all regions outside North America by between 4% and 9%. And other countries would have opportunities to fill the gap in the US in sectors like textiles and clothing. The WTO said the services trade, though not subject to tariffs, would also take a hit.
Services trade, while not directly subject to tariffs, is also expected to be adversely affected. Declines in goods trade will reduce demand for related services such as transport and logistics, while broader economic uncertainty is expected to dampen demand for travel and investment-related services. As a result, the volume of global services trade, and I should stress it's the volume, not the value, is now forecast to grow by 4.0% in 2025 and 4.1% in 2026, well below the baseline projections of 5.1% and 4.8%.
China is pushing back against what it calls extreme pressure from the U.S., urging Washington to ease up and come back to the table for trade talks.
China's Ministry of Commerce has maintained normal communication with its counterparts in the United States at the working level. China's position has always been clear, and it is open to consultations with the United States in the economic and trade fields. The unilateral tariff increase was entirely initiated by the United States, and the party who initiates it must resolve it. We urge the United States to immediately stop extreme pressure, coercion, and blackmail, and resolve differences with China through equal dialogue on the basis of mutual respect.
President Trump is claiming big progress in trade talks with Japan, but the negotiations are proving to be complex and potentially contentious. The president met with the Japanese delegation in Washington, marking one of the first round of direct talks since his administration's global tariff push. However, the meeting took Japan by surprise. Take a look.
U.S. President Donald Trump touted big progress in tariff talks with Japan on Wednesday, after one of the first face-to-face negotiations since he imposed sweeping global duties earlier this month, most of which he later paused for 90 days. Japan had not expected the president to get involved in Wednesday's talks, which it had been hoping to limit to trade and investment matters. But when Trump announced his involvement early in the day, he said the discussion agenda included the amount Japan pays towards hosting U.S. troops. Afterwards, Trump said on social media that meeting the Japanese delegation had been a, quote, great honor, and that big progress had been made without giving details. Opposite Trump in the meeting was Ryosei Akazawa, a close confidant of Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. He spoke to reporters after the talks.
Meetings with Japan are a priority. When Trump says that there are 70 or 100 countries in line, there's no way the president can attend all of them, so the talks with Japan are a priority. I think his presence is a clear sign of that.
Ishiba sounded a more cautious tone speaking to reporters later in Tokyo, saying that negotiations going forward, quote, will not be easy. Trump earlier this month blasted Japan for what he said was a 700% tariff on rice, a figure Tokyo disputes. Levies on autos are particularly painful for Japan, as cars make up nearly a third of the country's shipments to the U.S., its biggest export market. Trump's involvement is a potential sign he wants to keep tight control over negotiations with dozens of countries expected over coming days and weeks. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni heads to the White House on Thursday to discuss tariffs imposed on the European Union with Trump. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has invited South Korea's finance minister to Washington for talks next week.
A powerful combination of trade uncertainty and central bank buying has sent gold prices soaring to record highs. China's continued gold reserve accumulation is a key factor, along with the weakening of the U.S. dollar.
Gold touched fresh record highs on Thursday. Prices for the precious metal hit just over $3,357 per ounce before easing back a little. Demand is sky high as traders seek out a refuge from the turbulence on stock markets sparked by global trade tensions. Independent analyst Ross Norman told Reuters that the gains are a warning bell, indicating that investors are recalibrating their outlook. Prices have also been supported by buying by central banks, with China adding to its gold reserves for a fifth straight month in March. Since it's priced in dollars, bullion is further helped by the tumbling value of the greenback, which makes it cheaper for investors holding other currencies. Gold is traditionally seen as a refuge in times of turmoil. Over the first quarter of this year, more than $21 billion has flowed into exchange-traded funds featuring the metal. That's the biggest inflow since the start of 2022, when markets were reacting to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The gains are causing chaos for some of the world's biggest gold fans. Indians buy huge amounts of the precious metal, often as jewelry for weddings. Traders there say the rising prices have seen demand all but evaporate, with people having to trade in their old items to buy new pieces when there is a marriage in the family.
Chip giant TSMC has reported a massive surge in profits, but the company's future outlook is still clouded by the ongoing trade tensions with the United States. TSMC, the world's leading contract chip maker, announced a 60% jump in quarterly profit today, beating analysts' expectations. This growth is largely attributed to the booming demand for advanced chips used in artificial intelligence. President Trump's unpredictable trade policies, including threats on tariffs on semiconductors, are creating significant uncertainty for the entire chip industry, and particularly for TSMC. The company counts major tech players like Apple and Nvidia among its customers. Just last month, TSMC announced a massive $100 billion investment in the U.S., alongside President Trump at the White House. This in addition to the $65 billion they've already pledged for 3 chip plants in Arizona, with one already operational. While TSMC's profits are soaring, the company, like the rest of the industry, is closely monitoring the evolving trade landscape and the potential impact of U.S. policies. The Trump administration pressure on Harvard University has escalated dramatically, with the Department of Homeland Security now threatening to revoke the university's ability to enroll foreign students. Now, this comes on top of threats to strip its tax-exempt status and the termination of millions in DHS grants, all tied to Harvard's refusal to comply with demands to overhaul its academic programs.
U.S. President Donald Trump is keeping the pressure on Harvard University after it rejected his demands to overhaul academic programs or lose federal grants. In a social media post Wednesday, Trump wrote Harvard is a joke and should no longer be considered even a decent place of learning. A day earlier, he threatened to strip the university of its tax-exempt status and said it should apologize after Harvard called his demands unlawful.
First, when it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students. There were professors who said that he had engaged in discriminatory behavior against Jewish students. Of course, you had the former president of the university saying bullying and harassment depends on the context. You also had an encampment on Harvard Yard that we all saw play out before the cameras. The university failed to impose formal discipline on any students for this anti-Semitic conduct violations, including the occupation of a campus building and the disruption of classes with bullhorns.
Veena Dubal, a law professor at the University of California Irvine Law School and the general counsel of the American Association of University Professors, said the move could be a watershed moment.
Everyone was looking to see who would be the first universities to stand up to the Trump administration, and I'm really, really heartened that it is Harvard, one of the nation's oldest institutions, certainly one of the most well endowed, with a lot of frankly political connections. I mean, this could be a game changer in terms of saving the sector.
Beginning with Columbia University, the Trump administration has rebuked universities across the country over their handling of the pro-Palestinian student protest movement that roiled campuses last year, following the 2023 Hamas-led attack inside Israel and the subsequent Israeli attacks on Gaza. Some professors and students have said the protests are being unfairly conflated with anti-Semitism as a pretext for an unconstitutional attack on academic freedoms.
This is not just about pro-Palestine speech, and I really want to get that across here. This is people who do gender research, people who do research on race, people who do research about uterine fibroids, anything that kind of broadly can be seen as conceived as somehow woke or relating to diversity. I think those people are feeling an extraordinary chill, and certainly I feel it myself.
Harvard President Alan Garber, in a letter on Monday, said the Trump administration's demands, including an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, were unprecedented assertions of power unmoored from the law that violated constitutional free speech and the Civil Rights Act.
Europe is eyeing a potential brain drain from the United States as budget cuts force American scientists to seek employment abroad. The administration's funding reductions are impacting researchers at top institutions, and European leaders are actively recruiting, hoping to capitalize on the USS loss.
Marine scientist David Dia-Dihan began working at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, in October. By mid-February, he had been dismissed. Dihan and hundreds of others were affected by job cuts, targeting probationary workers as President Donald Trump's administration began slashing funding for universities and research bodies. He's now applying for jobs in Europe,
It is likely that the opportunities for me and others to find another job that will use our skills in the U.S. are going to be few.
Trump's administration says billions of dollars in cuts are needed to curb the federal deficit and bring the U.S. debt under control. Dehaan says he will go wherever there are opportunities, even if there is a high cost.
I'm going to probably lose my connection to my daughter who lives here in Florida. I do it because I'm passionate about science, about the marine environment. I will move overseas.
The threat to academics' livelihoods at universities including Yale, Columbia, and Johns Hopkins has given Europe's political leaders hope they could reap an intellectual windfall. A letter reviewed by Reuters, signed in March by 13 European countries, urged the EU Commission to move fast to attract academic talent. And the European Research Council told Reuters it would double the relocation budget for funding researchers moving to the EU. 13 European universities and research institutes that spoke to Reuters reported seeing an increase in U.S.-based employees and academics considering a move. But pulling in U.S. talent requires more than goodwill. For decades, Europe has lagged far behind the U.S. on investment of higher learning. Total expenditure on research and development in the EU in 2023 was more than $400 billion, according to Eurostat. That same year, U.S. spending was $940 billion, according to the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. A White House official said even with the cuts, the U.S. would still account for most of the world's research funding, and dozens of scientists have taken to social media, encouraging peers to stay in the U.S. Michael Olesen, an epidemiologist based in Washington, D.C., said language barriers were one potential drawback.
Really, the hurdles are just finding work, figuring out how to do that transition and moving. I'd probably sell most everything I have and just start fresh.
Olesen said any brain drain of U.S.-based scientists wouldn't necessarily have a short-term impact, but future generations would be affected.
The long-term implications, though, with losing some of the thought leaders in the sciences is that you also lose the educators, and you need that classroom setting a lot of times to learn how to do science properly.
Meanwhile, a U.S. senator's attempt to visit a wrongly deported man in El Salvador has been blocked, escalating tensions between the two nations. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen arrived in El Salvador Wednesday, seeking to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran man mistakenly deported and now held in a notorious prison. However, El Salvadorian authorities denied him access. Why was he denied access? According to Senator Van Hollen, Vice President Felix Oloa stated he couldn't authorize the visit and also claimed El Salvador is holding Abrego Garcia because the U.S. is paying for his incarceration.
The Trump administration is clearly in violation of American court orders, and his mother and his brother
a su madre y a su hermano
and their family, because
y a toda la familia.
He has 3 children.
Porque él tiene 3 hijos.
Some of them have severe disabilities. I promised them that I would do everything I could to get him out of CCOT.
The White House has responded sharply with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt accusing Van Hollen of using taxpayer dollars to demand the release of a deported illegal alien, MS-13 terrorists.
The Democrats and the media in this room have continually and wrongly labeled Kilmar Abrego Garcia as a Maryland father. There is no Maryland father. Let me reiterate. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country. And when Kilmar Abrego Garcia was originally arrested, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money covering the ears, mouth, and eyes of presidents on various currency denominations. This is a known MS-13 gang symbol of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Abrego Garcia was also arrested with 2 other well-known members of the vicious MS-13 gang. And 2 separate judges found that Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and that finding has never been disputed.
But hasn't the U.S. acknowledged a mistake in this case? Well, the U.S. Supreme Court has directed the Trump administration to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return after admitting he was deported due to an administrative error.
That still leaves the question, why is the government of El Salvador continuing to imprison a man where they have no evidence he's committed any crime and they've not been provided any evidence from the United States that he's committed a crime? They should let him go, and we will find a way to get him from San Salvador to Maryland, the state of Maryland.
However, President Trump, during a meeting with El Salvador's President Bukele, said he had no plans to return him.
The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you could release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
The Department of Homeland Security also claims it lacks the authority to bring him back. Adding to the controversy, Abrego Garcia's lawyers maintain he fled El Salvador at 16 to escape gang-related violence. He was granted a protective order in 2019 to continue living in the U.S. and has never been charged with or convicted of any crime.
President Trump and our Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Vice President of the United States are lying when they say that Abrego Garcia has been charged with a crime or is part of MS-13. That is a lie.
Along with Abrego Garcia, the Trump administration has deported hundreds of people, mostly Venezuelans, whom it says are gang members, to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, without presenting evidence and without a trial.
This contempt proceeding will not resolve the broader questions posed by the Trump administration's invocation, blatantly illegal, I should say, invocation of the Alien Enemies Act to deport summarily a whole group of people alleged to be members of a Venezuelan gang that nobody ever heard of until President Trump invoked this statute. This statute was designed for wartime. When we are at war, the statute gives the president the power to detain or deport nationals of the country with which we are at war. We are not at war with Venezuela, and therefore the statute does not apply. If the administration feels that it can ignore court orders and ignore constitutional requirements, that they provide people an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to defend themselves before they are spirited off to another country, then why couldn't the president do that to citizens? And in fact, reports are that he has said that he wants he has ordered his lawyers to determine whether he can send U.S. citizens off to serve time in foreign prisons. Plainly illegal.
And the news continues here on Net 25. We'll be right back.
Dahil walang hinto ang balita.
Financial straits.
Mata ng Agila Weekend tuwing Sabado, alas 4 ng hapon. Ito ang Net 25. Matatag, matapag, matapak.
Let's net together sa Net 25. Sa Net 25.
Harrowing video has been released showing two Florida law enforcement officers narrowly escaping a high-speed collision. Take a look.
The Volusia Sheriff's Office released footage of a near-fatal incident that occurred Sunday on a local interstate. A sergeant and a highway trooper were responding to an accident involving a car and a deer when they were almost struck by a speeding SUV. The dramatic footage shows the officers jumping out of the way just moments before the SUV slammed into their patrol vehicle. The SUV then continued crashing into the original car involved in the deer collision. before finally coming to a stop on the highway. The Volusia Sheriff's Office described the incident as a split second away from tragedy in a social media post.
You okay?
Are you guys okay?
Yeah, almost not okay.
Oh my God.
You okay? Well, we have rescue coming now.
Yeah, I just think I got whiplash.
Fortunately, neither officer sustained serious injuries. Authorities are now investigating the cause of the SUV crash. From steam engines to self-driving cars, the New York International Auto Show has seen it all. And this year, the show celebrates its 125th anniversary, showcasing the latest in automotive technology. But as the industry changes, the show's legacy remains a testament to the enduring fascination with the automobile.
It's the 125th anniversary of the New York International Auto Show. The New York Auto Show really got things started for the auto industry back in 1900 at the old Madison Square Garden. We had 69 different vehicle manufacturers represented in that first show, which is more manufacturers than we actually have today. But since that beginning of that time, back in November of 1900, set off this kind of annual exhibition of motor vehicles. First motor vehicles were steam, they were electric, and they were gas. So obviously gas prevailed for decades and decades and decades on it, but it's interesting to see where the genesis of the industry came about. Most of the manufacturing was also right here in the New York area. Queens, Brooklyn, Connecticut is really where the industry really got its start. But when it comes to the show, it's just continued to grow over the years, and now we hold 1 million square feet of space, hundreds of new cars that are displayed, and we're expecting hundreds of thousands of people that come through the show to take a look at all the new product that's available and start thinking about the next car purchase. Electrification is still somewhat new, or connectivity, self-driving. Obviously, there's lots of things that are going on, but the show has just about something for everybody, and that's the beauty of the show. If you're into hyper cars or sports cars, performance vehicles, you know, that's there. If you're looking for SUVs, family fun vehicles, I think the auto industry has really gone about taking a look at the customer base that's out there and really has evolved into offering products that everybody's looking for.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Net 25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.